Hi everyone, in this tutorial I want to show you how to create a digital painting using line art or a scan drawing. So what we're going to do first is go to my blog. Let's just type the address up here, shall we? conartist.me, and then of course it'll bring you to my blog, and then you click on the tab that says resources, and you'll see at the very top scan drawing, scan pencil drawing. So if you click it once, you'll see it's been scanned in full. It's a visual diary page. And don't worry, we're not going to include the spiral binding and anything around it. So I'm just going to save this now to my desktop. So if you click it again, you'll see how big it is. So when it's nice and close up like that, you right click it and you just save the image to your desktop. It's called Face Scan. I've already done that. So I would just cancel that for now. And once you've saved it, go to Photoshop and click on Create New. Now what we want is a brand new A4 canvas. Now, of course, I can see the preset for A4 is right there. If you can't see the preset, you can always click on the Print tab here and then go looking for it. Okay, so there's A4 and click on Create. Right, so there's my blank canvas. The first thing I want to do is change the background color from white to an off-white, like a soft gray. So to do that, I go into the foreground color area here, or I can go to my color palette here. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to choose a soft gray. And once I've chosen my soft gray, on my keyboard, I press Alt and Delete, and that will change the background color. Now, any color you choose, as long as you remember Alt and Delete, that is the shortcut for fill. So let's just go back to soft gray, Alt, Delete. And you want a background color that is not white because it helps with the color painting process. It helps you kind of choose and determine colors a lot easier. Now, once you've done that, go ahead and open up the file that you downloaded of the scan, the face drawing. Now, once you've got that open, all you need to do is select the area that you wish to paint with. And of course, we don't want the spiral binding or the scanning area around the page. So I'm just going to click on the lasso tool. Make sure the feather is on 0, and then very carefully press and drag with my mouse and lasso around the face. There it is. And then once you've done that, you can copy it, Control-C, go to your A4 canvas, and you can paste it, Control-V. And we've got it now as a new layer. So as soon as it lands on your canvas and you've got a new layer, just double click the word Layer 1 and change it to Scan. All right, so every time you create a new layer, give it a name. Now, before I start digital painting and adding color, I want to manipulate the scan a bit better. The first thing I want to do is make it see-through, make it transparent. So where it says normal, I'm going to change that to multiply. Now, what it does, it gets rid of all the white and kind of makes it see-through, but not quite. You can still see the shape of it. And for a perfect color digital painting, you don't want to be able to see the selection of the scan. So the way you correct it is you go to the image menu, you choose adjustments, and you choose levels, or Control-L. And then you adjust it this way. These little triangles, you can move them up and down, and straight away you can see the effect on your screen. So just judge it. The idea is you want to make the pencil marks darker, not too dark, of course, but you want to get rid of that gray edge and any smudge marks. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's good. Very happy with that. Click OK. And now we're ready for some digital painting. Now, in order to do this properly, you need a new layer. So you go up to the pop-up menu here and you choose New Layer. And just call this Color Work. This is the layer that you'll be doing your digital painting on. Now, very important, listen carefully. You have to make sure that this layer sits in between the scan and the background layer. So you just press and drag it down, and see how you get this black line? You let go, and that new layer is sandwiched beautifully between the scan layer and the background layer. Really important. Now it's time to choose a brush. So we go to the brush tool, we go up to the brush settings, and I'll just close all the folders, and I'll just make this window a bit bigger. Right, now with Photoshop, you get all these different types of brushes in different folders. Now, up to you, you can experiment, you can play around with different brushes. There's soft round ones, there's hard round ones. I'm going to choose a dry brush. It's called a pastel brush. You know, you got charcoal, you got chalk, and so on. But I'll just choose the Pastelpalooza one for this exercise. And you can play around with the size here, but I'll show you a shortcut to make the brush size bigger. Now, this could certainly do it. See how the brush is getting bigger every time I move this slider? So you can certainly do it that way. Just to hide this window, just click anywhere outside the window, so even here. And this is the shortcut to make your brush bigger. On the keyboard, next to the letter P, you've got the square bracket keys. The right square bracket makes your brush bigger, and the left square bracket makes it smaller. Staying with the keyboard, if you want to zoom in and out, you go Control plus, and Control minus is for zooming out. Now, let's say you zoom right in and you want to move the artwork in the window. If you hold down the space bar, your cursor becomes a little grabber hand, and then that lets you move the image into view. Okay, so that's a nice little shortcut. Control 0 stands for fit in window. So once again, Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out, and off you go. So I'll just stay this view, and I'll just show you how this works with the Pastelpalooza brush. Now, make sure the opacity is on 100% to start off with. We're going to play around with this in a few minutes, but to start off with, we're going to lay down some color at 100% opacity. So I'm just going to choose, or I'll choose just any color really, maybe even this color here. Right, here we go. Now I'm just pressing and dragging my mouse, and I'm just going to do this fairly rough for now, making sure that I avoid the eyes, of course, keep them white. And obviously you will take your time when you're doing yours, but yeah, just, you know, go crazy. Paint your solid color, your flat color all around the face. And when you get into a tight spot, you got two options. So let's just say, for instance, I'll just go over the lips for now. So let's say, for instance, there's a bit of a tight spot coming up here. You can zoom in, okay, Control plus, use your space bar to move the eye into view, and then make your brush smaller. Use the left square bracket key. And then that lets you get into tight spots like this. If for some reason you accidentally go outside the area, let's say you're not being careful, and I'll just make a deliberate mistake in a few seconds. Okay, so here's my deliberate mistake coming up. Oops, oh no, what have I done? Don't panic. You can click on the eraser tool, and depending on what brush you have, make sure it's on 100% opacity. You can just rub it out. Now you're going to like this next bit. The shortcut for choosing the brush and the eraser tool is B for brush and E for eraser. So remember that, B for brush, E for eraser. So as you're painting, let me go to B first, B for brush. As you're painting, if you stuff up, you just press the E key, and that gets you the eraser, and you rub it out. Okay, let's zoom out and let's see what we've done. So we've got a slab of color down. If I hide the scan, that's all we've done. We've just painted a slab of color, one flat area of color, and this is really important for the next bit. Once you have painted an area of color, you need to lock the layer. And by that I mean you click on the first little icon, which stands for Lock Transparent Pixels. Now what that does, it means that next time you paint, you can paint within that area of color. It won't let you paint outside the area, which is really important for shading and rendering, as I'm about to prove. Okay, let's tap on the B key to go back to the brush tool and make sure, yep, Pastelpalooza, we're still on that. Now, to do the rendering, to add lights and darks and shading, we need to bring down the opacity. Now I'm going to bring it right down to about 10%, thereabouts. Now, let's choose a different color. Let's go for a brighter orange. And let's make my brush a bit bigger. Right, that's big enough. Now watch what happens with the opacity turned right down. I can do brush strokes with my mouse. Every time I do a brush stroke, it adds a layer of color, orange in fact. So every brush stroke stands for 12% opacity. Now this is great for adding tonal variations. Now don't forget, I'm using a textured brush. I'm using a dry pastel brush. So naturally it's going to look rough. But yeah, this is how you add shading. Now, obviously, your common sense of human anatomy and lighting in general will decide where the dark bits are and where the light bits are. If let's say, for instance, the light source is from the top left-hand corner, you want to make sure that this has all your highlighted bits. Okay, so let's just put some, and even the nose. Let's bring our brush size down. That on the rim on the nose, you could have a little bit of a highlighter area. Just a bit more here, and even under the eye here. Make the brush a bit bigger. So you can see I'm already applying my lighting knowledge. Let's say on the right-hand side, you want it to be darker. So let's go and mix it up a bit. Let's go for a blue, one of, that shade blue. And don't be scared. Watch what happens now. Okay, so we're adding some darker tones on the right-hand side. I'll make the brush a bit smaller and just add a little bit of blue here. And even under the nose. If you make a mistake, just press Control-Z. And you can press Control-Z as many times as you like. Okay, so I'm just mucking around now. I'm just mixing it up. Let's go for a pink. Okay, make the brush a bit bigger. Okay, yeah, now this is interesting now. Beautiful. All right, so we're getting some interesting effects. All right, now, if you want to, I guess, mix it up a bit, you can switch brushes at this stage. You can go into a wet media brush. So let's close that folder and open up wet media. And this is a pretty good one, the Oils Round Flex. Now, be warned, if you choose it without modifying the settings, let me just choose a color to prove a point. Let's choose the color green. No, in fact, let's choose yellow. Sorry. Now, if I've got the yellow color selected and I don't muck around with the settings up the top here, this is what I get. Yes, it's wet, you can see, but it's really harsh. So what I suggest you do, if you're going to use the wet media brush, I'll just undo that. Bring down these settings, like bring them right down to almost 10 or 15%. Load, flow, this will just slow everything right down. Okay, so watch the difference now. It's a bit more subtle. And basically what happens is the color that you've chosen will mix with the colors that are already there. Even that's a bit too fast. I can bring that down to even 5%. Or these can be right down to 5 or even 6%. Now I'm going to choose a different color to prove a point. Let's choose this nice blue. Make my brush a bit bigger. Ah, that's better. Look at that. Now that's mixing beautifully. Okay, so once again, it's mixing the colors that are already there. If you go over the top, let's say you mix it too much, just choose another color, the original color, and mix it back. Okay, so you can see it kind of blends it really nice. So that's another effect. If you've got too much texture and you don't like it, yeah, just choose a white, for instance, the color white, and blend that with whatever's there. Or go for a darker color and really bring it up. So a combination of dry and wet media brushes can give you some really interesting effects. Now, after you've applied some color, you can play around with the colors themselves. So let's say you think, oh, yeah, I'm not sure, it's a bit muddy. There is this effect that you can do, and it lives under, so make sure that layer is still selected. If you go to image adjustments and choose hue and saturation, this is like a little toy box here. This is a magic box. You can dial up the slider, bring it up and down, the hue slider, and you can look at different combinations. It basically gives you alternative options for color based on what you've already mixed up. So that's really interesting. You can bring up the saturation. You can bring the saturation right down. So this is interesting. Like, that's a different effect altogether. If I untick the preview box before and after, it's crazy stuff. So if at first you don't succeed, you can certainly play around with the hue and saturation window. The other thing you can play around with is the layer effect for the scan itself. If you select the scan, if you switch from multiply to color burn, you get a different effect altogether. The lines become kind of like blended with the colors underneath. So, you know, there's lots of options in Photoshop, but I'm going to stop there. I think that's enough fun for one day. Play around with it. Oops, sorry, I forgot to go back to multiply. See what you get, see if you like it, and yeah, have fun. Okay, I'll see you guys later on. Adios.